Everybody, welcome to our June 1st edition of our morning coffee review. I'm Jason Hartley, joined here with Michael Ashave and our lovely assistant DJ CJ. We're doing our morning coffee review, and today we are talking about layers, all within inside of Bluebeam Revu. Hope you had a nice, long, relaxing, or productive holiday weekend. We're going to go ahead and start by having Michael sign into his studio. You can all see his screen, and we're going to be showing you some of the stuff with layers inside of Bluebeam Revu. Now, with these sessions, if you haven't joined us before, these are all for you. So if you have any questions, type them into the chat or the Q&A box. And those of you watching us on YouTube Live, feel free to type in your questions there as well, and they get relayed to us over here on Zoom.
Exactly.
So last week we were talking about, what did we talk about last week, Michael?
That's a great question. We talked about not profiles. Was it profiles? No.
We talked about scaling, sketch to scale. And we talked about
that's what it was.
Scaling tool sets, things like that. And one of the things that we had mentioned last week was our favorite question was going to win something. And with that, we had chosen a winner. So drum roll, please. We chose Ed Lowe. So thanks, Ed, for being a big part of our morning coffee review and giving us some good questions. We will reach out to you via email today to get your contact information. So maybe something will show up. So thanks for your participation, Ed. Nice to see you here week after week.
Thanks, Ed. So DJ CJ background helper will definitely reach out to you and send it on your way.
Definitely. Nice to see some other familiar names up on the attendee list as well today. So thanks for joining us. So with that, we're talking about layers. And what are layers? For those of us that come from a CAD background, layers are a vital part of everyday life, right? We're putting different text and lines on different layers to keep them organized. And we have that capability here in Revu as well. The markups that we're creating in Revu can be organized by layer, and some of the things that we're printing to PDF can come pre-populated by layers as well. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we'll go through some different scenarios through Revit and AutoCAD using the CAD plugin part of Revu, and we'll go from there. So using Michael's screen up, I'm going to let him describe what he's got going on here.
Thanks, Jason. We're going to go through a couple of case scenarios personally that I've done and also have encountered so far. David asked a question, and we will touch base in terms of assigning specific tool sets to layers, and also the way to add already existing markups to layers. There are always some questions. Hey, well, what if I don't want to see a markup, or I don't want markups to print out, right? What's a way to be able to do that, or export specific markups? Is there a way where I can just allow specific markups to be exported out of Revu? Down here in the markups list, you have the ability to export markups or import markups right here. And sometimes you only want to export out a specific, subject or specific layer, however, or whatever you want to export, so that you can import them in specifically to whatever document you want. But in order to do that, you can't do it natively, because if you say export, even if things are filtered, everything's going to export with it. So one way to do it is assign things specific to layers. So I already have one set up with layers, and layers is a panel. So it's found over in the panel access. And if you can't find it, you can always right click on the panel, go to show. There will be layers here, or Alt+Y for all of us that love the hotkeys and can learn hotkeys. But if you populate the layers, it works almost like the sense of layers in the CAD environment. We're just assigning things to a specific layer on top of the document. Right now, I have specific layers for flooring, so I can easily not see them by selecting this eye here, and it'll remove those specific ones. It even removes the legend assigned to the tool set that was being utilized for those ones. Or maybe the finishes. Maybe I don't want to see finishes in the specific area that we have. I can deselect those as well. Or maybe glazing. Maybe I don't need to know the glazing of the windows or doors that are going to be utilized here also. But again, I can reselect them. I can also have them not print out, right? So maybe we do want to see them, but we don't want them to print out. We have that ability here as well. So if I go through, I can say, hey, maybe this one is supposed to print or not export. And this is where we'd be able to not export those markups as well, allowing you to selectively select those. Now, there was a question about assigning layers to tool sets. You have that ability as well. So as I go down, I'm just going to go from over to here, and I get ready to make a markup. You can go through and say, hey, here's a markup, and let me add another revision cloud here. I think this one's a cloud plus, great. Hello all, and let me do an Alt-Z. There we go. And from here, you can always hit the right little gear from here, and you have the ability to create a legend from here as well. So this would create your legend. But now if you want to add specific ones to layers, you also have the ability to do that from the markups list. So from down here, you can say, hey, all of the architectural ones I want to be on a specific layer. So you can go through and you can right click on the ones that you want to add to a layer. And from there, you can create the layer. Now you do have to name the layer whatever you'd want to name it. I'm just going to put example, or I guess I could put morning coffee review. Here we go. And you can start adding specific items to layers, and we'll start seeing them here. And whatever, again, you don't want to show up, you do not put down a layer, or you do. You can add a new child before or after layer. So those are more of sub layers within the layer. So it's kind of like a hierarchy between them. That also has the ability for those, and then a whole nother layer subset for it as well in terms of adding for a page, right? So we can add a layer from a page if we wanted to add directly from another page. So depending on how we're exporting content as well, I think that was a question just to clarify those.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm going to pitch that over. So the layers that Michael is working on right now were created here in Revu. The layers that can come over from CAD or Revit, those can be manipulated here, but that of course doesn't affect the source file that they came from. So these are Revu only layers currently.
Do you have an AutoCAD document to see how layers would be plotted out from?
I'm working on it.
Okay. We're work in progress as I'm talking along. Also from here, you can say, hey, here's my layers. What else do we have from selectable? So majority of panels have the ability to have the selection drop down. Just like we were over here in the tool set, if I wanted to go through my tool chest and see which specific tool sets I have available. Over here in the layers also has one, such as reset layers. So if you want to go through and reset all the selections that were selected for those specific layers. If I want to show print layers only, so it'll deselect the ones that are only going to be shown, or just show specific exported. So let's say if you had a ton of layers going through, that would be the question there. Show layers on page only, sort layers alphabetically. I think there was one where a question was asked, can you resort the way that that data is being information-wise? I'm not going to save the configuration, but that would be the sort layers alphabetically or not. But you can also have the same ability when you're sorting them alphabetically to also have the drop down of it going backwards, right? So alphabetically the opposite way from up and down forward. So whatever layers you're having them for there. Now you can set not a default, but a already pre-selected configuration. And those would be probably for, I haven't done this, but if you're going to go through and reset a new one or create a ton of layers that you're going to dump things onto, would be what it would be utilized for most. So let's just do morning coffee review. Hit OK. And now I have this selected one because those are going to be the specific layers that are already pre-created for my documents.
So you can do your CAD standards kind of, but with Bluebeam layers.
Yep.
It's pretty handy. A couple questions here. Is it possible to set a tool to a layer so that every time it's used, it goes onto that layer? So before you were just bringing in things from your tool set, can you take a layer that's been pre-populated, so like your hello all, which is on that example layer that you've created, if you add that to your tool set, will that layer come in? One way to find out.
I'm quiet because I don't know the answer to that, right? So I would be creating a layer from this. If I go
Right.
to settings, can I already assign it?
I'm pretty sure this is going to work. Because you've got your, is it the hello all or the one that's on your example layer?
But I'm not seeing the selection of layer here.
If you right click on your any of those, there's a layer option.
I see the layer option, but is it going to, because I've already assigned that one to a layer. But is that because I placed it? It won't let me. So let's do this one instead.
Callouts or clouds.
We'll just do, yeah, clouds. Thanks. So actually, let's go to this document here and see.
So there's not a cloud layer in there. When we place a call out that's on a cloud layer, the layer dialog box shows.
Yep.
Out. So yep, absolutely you can. So that answers David's question. Ed has a question. Do they act like AutoCAD and allow you to set a color to each layer, and will it override the tool color from the toolbox? I don't know the answer to that one. That's a great question. I believe there is a color option. Yeah. No?
We're going into uncharted territory, but I like it. Let's see.
Yep, that's what we love to do here.
I could isolate
Maybe not.
markup.
I'm gonna fire up mine, see what I can do on my side here. What does
yeah,
that
I'm not
do?
finding a color association for it. The only time I see a color association is when we're doing overlay, because overlay is used also with layers, and it's actually just making the whole PDF a specific color. So I'll just skip straight to overlay and we'll come back to this. So we don't have to worry that, hey, Mike, I want to come back and see that. I'll have that document again. But overlay does do the color, but it's specific to whatever those ones are. So if I go to here, we're going to compare two different documents. Let's see, revisions here. This one, this is assigning a color to the whole document, like a layer. And usually I always recommend using the out of the box. And right here, it's going to create the specific layer naming convention. So you decide how this is going to be named. I'm gonna hit OK, add another one. So again, these are gonna compare two different documents. And when things do align, it will keep and maintain its same color. And when they don't align, when they do align, it'll be black. But when they don't align, it'll be their native same color. Hit OK. Now from here, if I look at the layers, I can see them over here. The two, again, naming them the same as whatever page name they were. And then when things do align, right, same native color, black. And when they don't align, it's whatever layer color they were given. So this is a layer specific color that you get to assign for two different PDFs, right? Allowing you to see the difference between the PDFs.
But there is an override, so we can't make everything on layer example to be blue and override everything. That's a really good question, though. I appreciate that opportunity to test that that theory. And there's another question here. Can we pre-populate or pull layers in from other Bluebeam PDFs? So I think this goes along with that save configuration that we were just doing. Can you load it from another PDF?
Yep, so you can add after or before from a PDF file. So you're just going to add documents from there. That is the same one of adding specific layers. You can edit the defaults for those. Let me go and open this one up. So this is going to add the layer. So whatever I'm going to create from here, whatever color, we'll just do magenta, background, no background. What type of blend we're going to do? I'm going to change this to 75. Okay. This will bring the whole PDF in as a sublayer as well. And I should have probably done it with the same one, but that's one way we could do it. Bringing in layers from another PDF in terms of like importing the comments may allow you to do it that way. So
Oh yeah, that'd be a good way to try it.
let's try it with a blank PDF here.
So no PDFs there, or no layers there.
Correct.
And then now when you go in, so we've got those 3 layers: finishes, flooring, and glazing.
So the layers come with the markups association.
Good deal. So to add on to the question, looking to add layers such as Cloud and Morning Review, but not bringing in a new PDF on its own specific layer.
Yep, and that's what this was, right?
Yep, I believe that settles that. Good one. So I was looking here on these layers, and I don't know if I've ever seen or noticed this button. It could be something new. I'm curious to know if you know what it does, because if not, we're going to figure out what it does. If you go to the layers pull down on the top of that toolbox, so pull that down, there's dial. What does dial do?
Here?
Very bottom. Dial.
I don't know.
Isolate, build, select. Oh, so it's just a different setting? Interesting. Ooh, there's a good question from Chris. So as we figure out what dial does, and maybe we'll do that on another.
We'll have to do a Google.
Yep, we'll either Google that one or we'll figure it out. We'll talk about it next week. Good question from Chris here. Can you have a blank PDF with all your layers and then import it into a project? The blank part might be tough because we'd have all those markups that we're trying to import to grab the layers from.
So you would do this. You would have a preset selection of which, right? So you're going to save your configuration. Yeah, that's what you would do.
But can you load a configuration? Or does that always stick with review?
I don't know the answer to that.
So if I had my own layers and I wanted to send them to you so we could work on a project, would you be able to load them? We're stopping ourselves this week on Morning Coffee Review. Good start to June. This is fantastic. It's always good to.
That's the whole point, right?
That's exactly the whole point.
So could I load it? Is it going to be staying with it? I believe. Yeah, I don't know.
So as far as the blank PDF, unless we put layers on a template and then we started that with a blank one. But I don't know if that would import into a project. Good question, Chris. Thanks for that. Another question from Ed. When you compare 2 PDF files and someone moved the image or plan, can you readjust the plan from one PDF to correctly lay on the other one?
Well, that never happens, right?
Right? Never happens. There is the, manually align, but can you realign once they're overlaid?
No, you can't go backwards. So you have to redo the documents. Yeah. So the question was, because that never happens. No one ever moves viewports, right?
Right. You must work with different architects than I do, because that's all they ever do.
So I'm going to, I forgot I had to add. So I know specifically from these examples, they align. And in the perfect world, you would hope that they always align. We don't have a designer that's nudging over the viewports at all, because the ramifications of that, right, is if they're trying to do a compare here, they're not going to align automatically, because what Review is doing is taking the whole page by the whole page and just dumping it on top of each other, right? So thankfully, it's the same size document. I think it's like a 34 or something. They're both the same size, so they're just going to be right on top of each other. So it doesn't really matter in terms of location. But for this, we're going to say they didn't align. You can use align by points instead. So what Revu is going to do is going to say, please choose 3 points on the document for manual alignment. Now, this is a little tricky. I personally do not like to align by intersections because sometimes you'll be able to click on multiple different locations there. So it really comes down to knowing your document and what are things that aren't going to move, like the title block, right? Or maybe it does move, but maybe structural, a column's not going to move, or a grid line's not going to move, right? Those types of locations may not be moving. So I used to like the intersection, but I've always found myself always having to double back. So I usually like an endpoint like here, right? So I'll do 1, 2, and then maybe 3, because they're going to show up on the same document in the same area. So they're going to be hyper copied onto the area. So if you did want something that was moved like over here, you pick those 3 and those 3 will align to those 3 here. But for here, they're just going to same an area, and it allows for a better click. Again, an intersection may have 5 different click points. So sometimes I don't like to use intersections. So see how it's snapping here? It's not really snapping at the main intersection. So I prefer to do an endpoint, but again, to each their own. So for those 3, they're going to align, same color, hit OK. And you can edit defaults and stuff like that as well, but here we go.
That's a good tip, because sometimes I do use the intersection, but yeah, I have run into that same thing that you've seen where there's multiple click points for that intersection.
Yeah, and then you're like having to redo it.
Oh,
so
yeah. Because as you mentioned, we can't fix it after it's been done. You got to start over.
Yeah, you got to start over. But yes, and then also for, hey, Mike, how'd you get things to click by points, right? That's usually a question too, that comes along with it, how I'm snapping to content. That's over in preferences, so Control K. Grids and snaps. Over here, you have snap to content, snap to markup. This helps a ton. And if you can't snap to the content, Jason, why might I not even be able to snap to content, even if I have those selected?
Because if you go up to the view, pull down on your menu, there's another toggle for those things. So snap to content, snap to markup. As you see, those are highlighted in blue currently. If those are enabled, then it's, enabled. But even though your preferences are looking for something else.
Also, if it's a raster PDF, I will not be able to snap to content too.
Correct. So one comment from David, when it comes to aligning things, he says that taking screenshots works well for him. That way you've got a good idea of what's going. So I like that. And then a question from Chris, is it better to do a big selection rather than a small area? So this is one that where scale can become a factor, right? So if your scales are off a little bit, if you do a small area, you might not notice it as much as going through a big area. Myself, working on larger civil projects where I'm, thinking outside the building, I would want to use a larger area between my points just to make sure that I'm getting the proper skew and rotation and stuff. But on a smaller building, like our example floor plan that we've got here, the small area to click through seems to work fine.
Yeah, and it comes down to what if something did change, right, in the area and location. You want to pick the area that is still the same or similar to align from, right? And you may have to do it. I've talked to a couple clients where the whole document has drastically changed, but I need one little area. Then just pick that one little area. You're going to see a ton of not matching areas, which is fine because you're just trying to narrow down one specific area. So again, you don't have to match the whole document. It could be one little area. And then you could, if you wanted to, you could go through and cut content so you don't have to see a lot of it. So you can cut through it. And it kind of makes it less busy, I guess, per se, right?
Mm-hmm. I like it. All right. Can you fire up Revit and talk about getting layers over from a Revit file?
Yes. Do you have
You call them Revit files? What do you call them?
Sorry?
You call it a Revit file, CAD file, like a model? What's the terminology
The
there?
model, yeah.
The model?
The most common term would be a model, yeah.
Ooh.
Now, I haven't actually printed out any layers from here, and I don't know if there's the ability to.
I've seen it happen before, but there's got to be a toggle. And I've been looking on the Civil 3D side of things because
Great.
if you have Review CAD or Review Extreme in AutoCAD and Civil 3D, on the Output tab, you're going to see a Bluebeam panel that has some settings on it. And in there is some good stuff, but nothing's saying pull layers. I swear I've seen it before.
I do know for here, the most I've used is the 3D PDF. Let me open up a project.
Oh, Revit. There we go. So those chain settings look real similar to what I see in Civil 3D, except obviously views and sheets are a little different in child views. We don't have those in AutoCAD.
So we have bookmarks, but I don't think there's a layers area. And which would make sense because Revit doesn't see layers, right? Yeah.
My problem is I don't have a whole lot of data sets for AutoCAD or Civil 3D for plan and profile or printable things that aren't client related. So I don't want to pull that up.
I have some too, and I'm like, I don't want to open the. I'm not able to. Actually, it's not that I don't want to.
Ooh, while you're in there though, question from Chris: is that where you set your spaces?
Yes. So export rooms to spaces. So good question, Chris. For those of us that have been in some of our morning coffee reviews, we talked a little bit about this before. Spaces are great use for punch walkthroughs or getting itemized counts or just even understanding the area measurements of a space already. You can do that. Again, just exporting rooms as spaces. I'm in a structural set and we don't do rooms here, but architecturally based, yes, you do have rooms in Revit. And you can export those rooms, which are Revit things, to spaces, which is a review thing.
Spaces are good. What did you just call that in Revit? So rooms are the equal to spaces? Okay.
Yeah.
Export rooms to spaces. Gotcha.
So when you see a room or you make a room in Revit, that will be a space in Revu if you use this export feature.
But you have to have rooms set up in Revit?
Yep.
Interesting. All right.
No, you have to plot. Yeah, you have to plot from here in order for you to get it. You can't do file print the writer. It has to be printed from here, just like the 3D PDF has to be printed from here as well. And the 3D PDF, by the way, so instead of doing, let me just do this. So let's say we took this from here to here. So instead of having the whole model be a 3D PDF, I can take a selection and just plot this out as a 3D PDF, which is a great trick. So if you don't want to give them your whole model or like have them see everything, they just a specific area as a 3D PDF, you can do the same thing here. So all you have to do is go from here and then go and create your 3D PDF. Yep, going to create it, and I'm going to save it to my desktop here. Desktop, not BIM 360. Oh no, it's freezing. And me too. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Back. And it's only that specific area.
Interesting.
All righty.
So that was Chris's question that you answered. Do you print from the add-on or from the regular plot button?
Yep.
Okay.
From the add-in. And
Now,
that is a CAD, so review CAD or extreme feature only to get the add-in capabilities. So just be aware of that if you're not seeing the add-ins. If you do have CAD and you're not seeing them, that's probably under the preferences of what you have, sorry, administrative. And from here, can you guys see the screen?
Yeah, your Bluebeam administrator.
So you'll see your add-ins for what Revu works with. And I have Revit 2021, but I need to uninstall and reinstall it, and then I'll see my add-in here. But if you have Revit 2022 installed, which I currently don't, I would see the add-in as well.
Aren't we going to talk more about the Bluebeam administrator in a? I guess we didn't talk about it or have that planned out for a future episode, but going all through the Bluebeam administrator would be something neat to show, because there is some good stuff in there for. Anyway,
Kyle did touch a little bit on it when he was in here, Kyle Davis.
Okay.
But yeah.
Good deal. And all right, so while Michael was showing you the Revit stuff, I was over here in AutoCAD, and I'm not getting the layers to come over from CAD either. But I've seen them before, so I'm curious to know how that happened. I had a PDF at one point that had all the AutoCAD layers in it that were configured to National CAD standard. And I'm pretty sure nobody took the time to go through that and do it inside of Revu. That would be quite silly, but there's no button for it. So maybe it was something that existed before and they'd removed it in later versions of Revu. Curious. Has anybody else seen a Revu PDF that had a ton of CAD layers in it? Type it into the chat.
And again, you can also add specific layers or specific markups to specific layers. So just like we determined that you can have them pre-selectable as a layer as they're being populated. As you go through your markups list, you can be selective. Actually, let me just copy a bunch of these over. So we have more in our PDF here. You can select specific ones that you want by holding Control. And then you can right click and add those that are selected to layers. So you can go here and you can go and create a new layer. Hit OK, and boom. Now those have been added to the specific layer here. You select it, remove it. So you can be selective.
That's pretty clever.
I have a file that has all of the CAD layers, and it's overwhelming.
See, so how did they get there?
So David, did they create them, do you know, or did they export them?
There's got to be an export. Now there is that there is a button somewhere to create a layered PDF. And there is another walk around that I've seen before too. Let me see if I'm going to test this on my side before I share my screen to make sure this works. So in here, so what I've seen before was when you plot from a PDF, normally in AutoCAD, I'm plotting with I'm plotting with Bluebeam PDF Driver, but supposedly the other driver, the PDF to or DWG to PDF.pc3, has options in it, including layer information. There it is, right there. So let me share my screen.
So I'm reading it here. Yeah, I'll let you share. Sorry.
So exit, minimize, share screen. There we go. So instead of my trusty Bluebeam PDF, right? This is the driver that I use most of the time when I'm printing a PDF file from AutoCAD or Civil 3D. And inside of this, I've just got a basic Power Protector data set here. But if I use Bluebeam PDF, I have my options here, which is just the standard AutoCAD stuff. But if I choose the default one, now this one comes with AutoCAD, DWG to PDF, you're going to see a PDF option. And if I select this, there is an include layer information. So it's including that metadata with it, which is pretty interesting that Bluebeam Revu isn't doing that for me. But if I preview this, and then oh boy, my plot window went way behind all my Zoom stuff. So give me a minute here. Let's okay and see what happens. There we go. Put that on the desktop. Now here in Revu, I have that. Do I have layers? I do. Look at that. So the Bluebeam PDF driver inside of AutoCAD will not export layers, but the default one will. That's kind of tricky.
Yeah, there's no setting in there. Go back to AutoCAD.
So inside of the settings here for the Bluebeam driver. So again, if you've got Extreme or CAD, you're going to see this on your output panel or output tab. And in the settings, there's nothing in here for layers.
What about
there's the hyperlinks? Nothing in here. All just your basic page setups. No layers, no nothing. So that's kind of weird. You can do password protection, which is great.
Yeah, it's great.
And you can do bookmarks, which we saw in Revu as well. Super handy function there. Even in dynamic, there's nothing for layers. So that's pretty interesting that we can't do it with the native Revu tools. However, we would use that DWG to PDF driver inside of AutoCAD or Civil 3D. Then we're going to see all the layers inside of Revu. So a comment here from Ed. They have a mixed shop where some people use Adobe Pro and some have Bluebeam. We sometimes have trouble merging PDF files later in the project, so we can tell them to use one of the native AutoCAD print drivers for PDF. Any thoughts or gotchas? Bluebeam and Adobe are mortal enemies. They don't want to work together.
Well, they follow the ISO standard, yeah. So if you are having issues because they are printing from different drivers, I always just say recreate it as a Bluebeam written PDF. And you can do that by going to File, Create from File, File, Create from File. Yep, and you can do it that way.
What are you doing?
I was just saying that's how you can recreate a PDF if you don't know what the printer driver was utilized as, because maybe they're having some issues with it. You can recreate that file as a Bluebeam written PDF.
There you go. That's a clever way to do it. And this is also something else you can do, create a layered PDF. So would that create a layer for, let's
select it. I think that is PDFs together as layers. Yeah. So that's adding. Yeah.
So it's going to combine all three of my pages here, and they should have a layer for each one, is what you're saying?
I believe so.
Oh, there it is. Look at that.
Yeah.
Page 1, page 2. Oh, wow. That is beautiful. Interesting. So it took them all and essentially put them on one page.
Yep.
So okay. Why would you ever want to do this?
Well, okay, so let me answer that. So let's say, for instance, we have a structural set, PDF set, right? And then a mechanical, and they want to verify from a PDF set if anything's going to clash from a 2D scenario, but I'd probably want to do more 3D, but you can do it this way as well if you only have the 2D sets.
Are you saying that Bluebeam is now a BIM software? We could use Bluebeam Revu for BIM? Clash detection? Wow.
Well, you're visually seeing if things are
right.
Yeah.
Just layering it. So it's like an overlay, but different.
Yeah.
Not as useful, I don't think.
Still useful though if you don't have what if you just have the PDF set, right? You're a contractor. You don't have the design set. You can't bring in one whole floor plan, let's say in a DWG, copy it over and make it a block and try to overlay it, right? Or you don't have the Revit model and you don't have Navisworks and we're not going to do a clash detection, right? How can we make sure things aren't? Maybe I only have the paper set, and that's one way we could do it.
Yeah. Question, don't you have to make sure all the views are in the same exact location to have done that? Yes, absolutely. That goes along with that. It doesn't have the manual alignment options that we see in overlay or compare. It's just throwing them together. And in that case, I'm surprised I didn't notice something way offside, because this has 69 sheets, and then I've got these other two. They should have been way off because they're different files or page sizes. but interesting.
Let
Good
me
to know.
see.
Are you reading something?
Yes, this is good if people place them in the same spot. I agree. If not, you could do the overlaid pages, and you can do a batch overlay as well and pick by points as well. That is an extreme feature only though, again, because that's a batch feature.
Do you have a data set that can show that? 'Cause that'd be kind of cool to see.
Not with multiple pages, no.
Yeah. We'll have
But
to create one.
You can show them going to batch, and that's the batch overlay pages right there. Yeah.
One of these days, we're going to do a extreme only edition.
Yes.
That'd be fun. Go through all of those things that you can do only if you've got extreme.
I think, yeah, we did do a quantity link though as well, right?
We started it, but we didn't go in super in depth.
Okay.
We've teased it. I think I'm working on a data set for that for some quantity takeoff stuff. That's pretty cool.
Great. You can also do hyperlinking from here as well in batch, but it's kind of going off tangent doing the same thing, which is extreme feature.
Right.
Any other questions about layers here?
Export layer to page, import layer from page. This is what we were talking about earlier. So if we did have a blank PDF, I think Chris asked this, if you had a blank PDF, could you import those layers? Bring them all over. All right. Any other questions today? Talking about layers or anything else? What else is on your mind that we can test for you? We're off to a great start of June. We're stumping ourselves. That's the beauty of our morning coffee review. Let's get in the software. Let's try to break it. Let's figure out how things work. Maybe you'll take something away that will help you in your workflow today or tomorrow. That's always fun for us. So we'll keep going. Any questions over there in YouTube land?
We're not afraid to encounter new parts of Revu together with all of you, the community. So again.
Yeah. We learned last week about the transform button with the 3D PDF, and I got to demo that. I demoed it, and someone was like, "You got to be kidding me!" I'm like, "I know, I just learned this too." And then I like, "You should come check out our morning coffee review." So if you're on here, welcome.
You can. There was actually one aha moment I had too as well. You can from a DWG create it as a PDF where you don't have to open the DWG. The only downside to that, it's whatever view is last saved or however it was last saved, that's how it's going to create the PDF. Does that make sense?
I was going to say, how can you do that if you've got a multiple page document? So typically, the good workflow from AutoCAD or Civil 3D, if you've got multiple sheets, is to do tabbed drawings where you can have multiple layouts. How would you print multiple layouts without opening that in CAD? How did you do that?
Yeah, so that was, I was saying that's a hiccup, right? But if it's just one thing, here, let's see.
Want to share? Or you can test it?
Testing it.
Okay. Sometimes we do that. We'll be testing in the background. All right.
Save that to the desktop. Converting AutoCAD. It takes a little bit.
You're doing create from file, is what you're saying?
Yep. So create from file, pick whatever you want. The DWG, and then say create. Are you showing it too for everybody?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm sharing. I don't know what this file is, but we'll just see what it is. So I'm creating a PDF from a file that's not open.
Yep, and saving to your desktop. Great.
Oh, this is going to be big.
Yeah, mine took a second too. Mine's still going.
Oh, look at that. It's trying to do AutoCAD in the background. You see that? It popped up my tool palettes.
Oh, so do you have to have CAD?
I have AutoCAD open, but I chose a Civil 3D file. And we saw things pop up there that were AutoCAD related, and I get a 24 by 36 one of one with nothing in it. So it must have just been
with 2 pages.
Where's the 2 pages?
So yeah, mine came out with the item that was in it. So I think it's the last saved area, or maybe it's the plot.
It could be. If you've got page setups for each layout, maybe that would work out better.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. All right.
No
I'll have you
questions
start.
today.
I'll have you start sharing your screen again because I got
Okay.
a couple of questions for you. I wanna test you. Since our
always
questions are
for
light
it.
today, I'll stop my share. There you go. So here, and this is going to be related to your Revit generated PDF if you've got one of those handy.
For what though?
Like, what would your typical workflow be? Well, we can use this file. All right. What
Hold
would your
on. Okay,
typical
let me open the spaces one then.
Okay, perfect. I like that one. I should probably steal that from you if I don't already have it.
I don't think so.
I'll trade you a Revit file for a Civil 3D file.
Yes, I will definitely take that. Actually, I want a 3D PDF corridor from.
I can make that happen.
Yes, that's what I want. Okay, so we're here.
Oh, we should also check a 3D PDF to see if there's layers in it. That would be fun. Since all the family information comes over, does layers come over too? Well, there are no layers.
There is no layers. They're elements. Those are seen in the
model tree.
3D model tree. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. So, what would your typical workflow be if you're working on this and you wanted to do CAD line? So last week we talked about sketch to scale and how Revu is not CAD. But if you were creating layers on this, how would you break it out? Would you break out your spaces? Would you break out your callouts? Would you break out your symbols that you're adding for the tool chest? Like, would you make this as complicated as a CAD file would be when it comes to layers, or would you simplify it?
My layers would only be for my workflow, to hide comments or markups that I don't want to be printed out, right? That would be my use case for them. So if specific markups were being made on the PDF set that I do not want to see at a specific time or print out, that's what I would do. Because you can filter out markups. That's a known thing. They get grayed out specific to the subject, right? So if I'm going through here, I have the architectural review. They go through and say something like move over 12 feet. And then we have the engineer review come over and make a different markup and say, not enough room. Who knows, right?
Okay.
But I don't want these to print out. I can filter. That's a known item, right? You can go through and filter now by multiple subjects, but it grays them out. They're still on my PDF set, right? I can't get rid of them. I would add them to a layer specific to what you have, which this one already has a layer of clouds. I would do a new one and just say, maybe you're going to do the engineer
comments altogether.
Comments, yeah.
Okay.
That way, then in here, right, I can say, hey, I don't want to see them. I'm looking at mine, and that's all I want to print out, right? Maybe I'm going back to the designer, and the designer is the only one that needs to see. They only need to see my comments as the architect, right? They don't need to see the engineer coordination comments that I was having with them as well.
Good use case. I know I've seen this before too, with like a 20% review and a 50% review and a 75% review that we've done before. And I always think that those numbers are kind of arbitrary. It's kind of hard to tell the difference between a 25% and a 30% review. But anyway, you can take those comments and then turn them on and off to see whether or not they've been addressed or how things have evolved as the project goes on.
Yep. And these are, by the way, when we were talking about earlier, making rooms and spaces, these are spaces that were rooms in Revit. And they are seen over here under the spaces, and I can select them. And they come in as a default color. So if you want to make it colorized, you can just go to properties here. These can be changed to different colors, as well as you go through and change them to whatever you'd like.
Can you change their shapes? Like if you needed
Yes,
to manipulate it to show the little doorway.
Yep, so you select it, right? And then I think you can add a point. Yeah, control point here.
Okay.
I'd
Interesting.
probably add a couple, right? So let me just do 2 here.
So completely off topic, what would you call that little doorway? Would that be part of a space or would you add that to a room?
The doorway?
Yeah, so you got that white space that's in no man's land. Would that
Well,
get
it
its
depends on
own?
what you're trying to calculate it for, right? So that would be whatever question you're trying to have for it.
Because
Well, let
wouldn't
me
you want them
snap
to
to
be
there.
like overlapping with no man's land in between them?
Well, so the room was probably not going out to here, right? But you don't need the dead space here from the door, right, to be calculated. You just need this area here to be calculated for the room.
Okay, maybe this is a question for everybody. When you're doing because I'm way out of my architectural world here. So if you're calculating square footage, does the doorway area count? Because you never see it measured. Yes, Doug says yes.
Doug says yes.
Because here you've got 1, 2, 3. You got 10 sections there. 3 feet by 4 inches.
But which
adds
room
up.
is it going to count for, though?
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, do you split it in half?
Doug, which one would take this dead space here? Would it be the bedroom? Okay.
It depends on the flooring type. So David and Doug would say if you only counted the square footage of the floor, you would miss the space that is taken up by the walls.
Yes, because that would be the question, right? So is the carpet going to run to here? Or is the tile going to run into the bedroom, right? Because this is tile, this is carpet.
Do you do transition in between them?
Yeah.
But that's, if you went to go measure this, there's probably a substantial amount of square footage that's not accounted for, which could add, a couple $100 to the project if you're just looking at flooring. Interesting.
But that's because how these rooms were made in Revit, right?
Correct.
Not accounting for the opening.
But the difference should be taken up in any waste calculation. Ooh. So that's an interesting thing too. So waste calculations. Now, this is completely off topic. When we're talking about doing quantities inside of Revu and doing our formulas for our cost, we could probably add a fudge factor to our formula for that waste calculation.
But I would just add a column of waste, I guess, right? That's
there you go.
Visible by whatever.
Add 10% or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
You exported from an MEP model of the spaces, correct?
No.
Would that look any different if you exported from an arch model of the rooms? MEP spaces don't need that dead spot from the door. True. I only have the one MEP data set, and I really don't know what I'm looking at.
But hold on, what's the question? So from an MEP model, what are you creating that are spaces? Sorry, don't come from the MEP world, but what are we creating in Revit that are spaces?
Because yeah, the MEP doesn't really care about the rooms as much, right? Curious if the hatches that are exported would cover the rooms. I'm curious too.
I'm curious if hatches that are exported would cover rooms from the arc. So the only thing that can be exported as spaces from Revit are rooms, right? So it is the rooms that is being exported. But you can create spaces wherever you want in Revu, right? So if you needed a calculation area of a specific space, you can just go up here and create a new space, right? So I can easily go up here and say, this is my new space, name the space, and there's a space here.
So you can make up your own stuff.
They have spaces, yeah. So again, Revit, the only thing that's exporting out from Revit is rooms to spaces. It isn't spaces to spaces.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. But you can create your own in here. And then another workflow I would do, which is something we talked about, I think yesterday, right? Or did we even talk about doing viewports? I think we did, right?
We did not
Oh,
talk
we
about
did not?
when
The
we were doing sketch to scale.
Yeah.
We missed that opportunity.
Okay. So what I would do is I take the most scale, right, which is a 1/4 inch, because this is continuing on what I would do with my day. I would add a scale to this entire page, not a custom. It is going to be the 1/4. I'm going to go down and say it is a 1/4. Boom. Now the whole page is scaled, but I have these viewports here. What am I going to do with these, Jason? How do I create a viewport that's specific scale to this area? I am going to go up to the measurements panel, and from here, oh look, this one already has a bunch of them. I'm going to add my own viewport. I think I created these. I don't remember. But from here to here, whenever something measures and encompasses this area, this is going to be 3/4, if I can see that all the way down there, which equals a foot. So 3/4 equals a foot, and I'd probably put the dash 0 inches.
Fancy.
Apply, and now anything that's measured in that area will be to scale specific to that viewport.
I really wish viewports had its own panel instead of having it hidden in measurements, but I get it. Because yeah, sometimes I'll go looking for that. I'm like, where would that be? Because I'm looking for viewports.
Yeah, it's hidden in the measurements panel. And this again works whenever you get ready to go from one spot to the next. If I go to dimension here, I hope this is accurate. So if I go from here to here, shift, there we go.
Okay.
And there's none here, but we can go from here to here. Doesn't want to snap.
So you're at.
For some reason, it doesn't want to snap. Oh, it's because there's no line. There we go.
It does snap to the hatches. I was wondering if it was going to grab that. So 7 inches, 7 feet there. And that string looks pretty darn close to what you got over there for the 19-footer.
Well, it's supposed to be 8, but I need to get it to snap to the right content. So it's that. So that it's straight. So there's something off there. Let's recheck it here.
That's interesting. We didn't create this file, did we? Oh, this is from Revu.
I didn't do the data set, no.
Ooh, good question here. How can you get the dimension to stay orthogonal? Is there any way to snap perpendicular or anything of the sort?
Yes, it's shift. So the same question is like for a line, right? Where you just hold shift and it does orthogonal positioning. And currently there is no way to change it from the 45, or what is that? I guess that's, yeah, it's 45. Is it 45? I think that's 30.
45, yeah.
Yeah. So it's only these positionings that are available currently. There's no preferences
no snap to
of like
perpendicular.
Yeah,
right?
There's no like change it to 20 degrees, every 20 degrees, do it, no.
You have multi-views for that measurement. What do you mean by that? Multi-views.
It may be because there's multiple measurements here for this. What is this typical wall? Maybe that's why the measurement's off.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe that's not the right scale. Yeah. See?
But you can delete them right there in that lower right-hand corner of the measurements panel. So you can delete those views. That's probably what's going on there. Good eye, Chris. All right, we got about a minute left of today's episode. If you have any other questions, type them into the Q&A box or the chat, and we'll see what we can cram in here before we cut out for the day. Get everybody started on their 4-day work week.
I'm gonna go into that data set. It's gonna bother me.
Right?
Did anybody say anything? Shift? Yes. Okay, great.
Ooh, there's a good question from Mindy. What other uses do viewports have? What else can we do with them? So if you click on that 3-dot ellipsis over there, that just brings
This
you
is
to your
the scale.
right.
What are the
Only for
uses?
scale.
I mean, so it's the same thing that comes down to uses for measurements, right? So different scalable markups. So if you're trying to transition from one scale to the next on the same PDF, that also is like a punch walkthrough, right? A punch list. If those markups are set to scale, they would change and transition specific to the viewports that you have on the sheet set.
Right.
Yeah.
If they don't have a viewport, they're not treated the same way as they are in AutoCAD as far as showing things from another area, but for scaling.
Yep, exactly. So like taking area measurements, right? Going through and adding scalable tool sets, which I think we have one here. Let's see. I don't know if any of these were set to scale, but see how it changes.
Oh, that's
when
a
I
fun way
flip through
to
them.
demonstrate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should have added that last week. Ooh, can you turn
Like
on off layers within viewport separately? Nope, not like AutoCAD. That would be a good one though. I don't think you can separate your layers per viewport.
Assign it to a viewport? I don't think so.
Great question. All right, well, that wraps us up for today. Thank you so much for being a part of our morning coffee review. Enjoy the rest of your week, folks. We'll see you again next Tuesday. Stay tuned to our LinkedIn preview or our YouTube preview of what we'll be talking about next week. We've already got our month planned out, but if you've got any ideas for us, enter them into the comments or enter them into the wrap up questionnaire that you're going to get if you're on the Zoom interface today. Otherwise, we will see you again next Tuesday. Take care out there.
And I'd always like to add at the end, fill out the survey at the end. It lets us know how we're doing, what you all want to hear about in review. That's what we're here to do, is to talk about things you want to learn more about. So please fill those out at the end. We do read them. That's where we got all of our ideas for the next month. And next month, actually in July, we are also going to be introducing another series on the West Coast time zone. So if you want to get double the dose in a week, you totally can. It'll be 8:30 PST.
That's right. We'll see you next week, June. My calendar's not changed yet. Let's just see you next Tuesday.
June 8th. Yep.
There we go.
June 8th. All right. Thanks, everyone. See you then.